All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Isaiah chapter 9, verse 19, to chapter 10, verse 11. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us on this Bible study today. We're still going through Isaiah, um, getting through not only through prophecies, but we're getting through context, making sure we're trying to divide this prophecy from that prophecy, and making sure we got everything lined up. And I pray with this particular Bible study that when we get into the prophecies, that these prophecies kind of maybe something we might be reminded of through Matthew or Mark, or maybe something we might be reminded of through our Bible listenings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Did you hear me, Matt?
I thought I clicked it. I guess it didn't register. So
Zoom
I'm still
tripping.
muted. Yeah, Zoom is tripping. So anyways, back to it. So last time we continued on the prophecy of the New Testament and more specifically about the Messiah. And not just the Messiah, but the very first part that we got into in verse 5 was connecting from 1 through 4, showing that the yoke of bondage that gets broken in the New Testament, meaning the standard of the law and the requirements of the law for salvation, how that was going to be torn away. And it compared that to, as in every other battle, there's a war going on because there's confused noise, the garments have blood all on them. But in this specific battle, you won't know until, as it points out, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Which, what do we read about at the end times and where the souls that don't get saved go? We read about them burning in everlasting fire. And then it goes to point out in 6 about how the Messiah, or a child who's born, is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. He's going to be in charge of the government. They're going to be leaning on him. And now he's going to be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, thereby showing in the Old Testament the evidence of the Trinity, or Godhead, however you want to say it, because he is a son who is also called the Everlasting Father. As we already know, Jesus from the New Testament is the Son of God and also God in the flesh, three and yet one. And so, with that, I do have to bring up also the example of a man with multiple personality disorder so that people can understand how that is possible. How could he be three and yet one? Well, we already have an example of this in regular physical life. A man with multiple personalities can have three different personalities. One of the three could be diabetic, the other two could be an old man and a young man. And the old man has different levels of knowledge than the young man. And when the diabetes personality is in control, he may show symptoms of diabetes, even if he's not. So if we have that in the physical and mental, how much more could a God be it when he is a spirit, not bound to physical reality because he is supernatural, not natural. And so continuing on, as it pointed out, that in verse 7 of the increase of his government, peace, it's gonna that the increase of this government and peace is gonna be no end to it. And we have to bring this up, and I have to say this because it goes into the prophecy, and the fact of the matter is that it shows increasing is what never stops. More peace, more of the government leaning on him. And that is something that historically holds true. That over time, even if there were little bits of drought here and there, over time it has steadily grown more and more, which is also why it's not a surprise that the first time when Jesus came, he didn't come as this mighty warrior slaughtering and defeating nations. He came as the savior who's going to die for our sins, starting off with no peace, nothing but the war, and building up to peace and more control as time has gone on. So we continued with these prophecies and these comparisons, both of the time of Christ, as well as the wars and the struggles that they're dealing with at this time with Isaiah and with the land of Israel between the Syrians, the Philistines, and all of this. And then, even as it pointed out, that the reason that this is happening in the first place, even at this time as well as then, is that the people, even when God struck them, even when God was disciplining them, they still didn't turn to God, nor did they even try to seek him. And so, because of that, the elders that are leading astray and the ones that are that are prophets that are giving false prophecies, leading people away, that they're going to be cut off in one day. And the last part that I have to bring up that we pointed out was about the joy that they have, that they won't have any joy. And even for the young men, even for the other ones that are not the leaders, because they were following the false teachers. And that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you don't get a pass just because you're at a church that teaches falsely. It's up on you, it is incumbent on you, it is required of you to be reading for yourself because of that. Because just like the children of Israel, even for us today, study to show thyself approved. So if I'm at a church that doesn't follow and I'm staying there, I'm making a choice. As I said in that study, and I love this, I'm going to keep saying it, you have become an accomplice to your own demise. So now today we're going to continue from that after verse 18 as we go forward into our first section in chapter 9, verse 19. And I'll go ahead and switch it to our verse section so that Charles can read. And go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
All right, I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 9, verse 19 to chapter 10, verse 2. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 19. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Woe unto them that decree unrighteousness decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed.
Unrighteousness decrees?
Oh, sorry, unrighteous decrees. And that
Always
write.
make sure, we don't want to build a habit of not reading. Make sure you're paying attention a little bit more.
Got it. And that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. Let me go back. So
that was one of the best jobs you've done reading, by the way. Good job on that, Charles.
Oh, thank you. So with Isaiah chapter 9, starting at 19, when he talks about through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, with wrath, God is the Hulk anger that God has. It's that's darkening the land. God is still pissed off, extremely pissed off.
You sure about that? That the
Let me go
land is
back.
darkened, or are you just rereading that, or are you explaining it?
Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened. Let me say it in another way. That's more simpler. Because it's pretty much self-explanatory.
You sure?
Because what we're saying here is it's through his wrath, through his anger and his Hulk anger that's making the land darken. That has made the
That's
land
one
darken.
way of looking at it. Thomas, what's the other way of looking at it besides that?
Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't got it right away.
All
I don't want
right.
to hold. Yeah.
Isn't hopelessness dark, Charles?
When you're talking about that darkness, yeah,
Isn't depression dark? Isn't death dark?
right.
So does this necessarily need to be literal?
Oh no, it could be metaphorical. It could be metaphorical.
Remember, always remember, guys, and I want you guys to practice this in your mind, even when you're not the one explaining. So, like right now, Thomas, it's not your turn for the explanation. I still want you practicing this. Look at every part that you're reading. Think about it. Is it possibly metaphorical? Is it possibly literal? If it's possibly metaphorical, what would it mean, generically speaking? If it is possibly literal, what does it mean? You want to be thinking about both because you don't want to call something a certain way if it's not. This, for example, in 19, and people shall be used as fuel of the fire. If we take that literally, is that talking about right now?
Not right now, no.
What is it? What would it be in reference to if we're taking that literally?
Wouldn't it be referencing to everybody's judgment day when the people go to
There you
lake of
go.
fire and
Yeah,
hell and all of that?
exactly. And no man shall spare his brother. That's what gives us the clue on that. Because by pointing out the sparing of the brother, fuel for the fire, when we're talking about a regular war, we're talking about people, no man shall spare his brother. You don't have, you have the ability to spare your brother. You can prevent things in a regular war. But if we're talking about at the end times, no man shall spare his brother. We have a whole different meaning from that then. If we're talking about the end time, we're talking about there's nothing you can do to make sure your brother is spared. It's meaning you can't force your brother to be saved. You can't make them have salvation. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if we don't take into account both possibilities, which, if we're being realistic, aren't both possibilities realistically possible in this context?
Oh, in this one, yeah, one could, yeah,
Yeah.
they could both possibly, yeah.
So if we only look at it as one, we limit ourselves to an assumption rather than something that's actually confirmed. It's different when something is a 99% it's likely one way. It's different then, right? Because then you can say, well, it's most likely this one way. You don't have to worry about specifying the other. However, in a situation where this is a toss-up in this context, and how do we know that it's a toss-up in this context, Charles?
How do we know that this context is a toss up? Because
Mm-hmm.
didn't we?
That it could go literal or metaphorical.
Mm, let me double check because the reason why I was thinking the literal is because of what happens in the next verse, but I need more than that. How it could be both would be, wouldn't it be all the context we talked about before as well of how it could have
Exactly.
been both?
Exactly. Read the last 5 verses prior to this.
Let me go back. Verse 14.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day.
Pause right there. When we read that, was that literal or was that metaphorical? A head and a tail getting cut off.
Oh, um, wasn't it like a metaphorical sense of what he's gonna do?
Exactly. And who did it? Was it a metaphor for? Who was getting cut off? I brought it up in the summary.
I just went blank. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Thomas, who's the head and the tail, as we read last time?
The head and tail, the guys in charge and the people who are, sorry, I blanked on a second. I know it, but I just blank. So the
All
guys in
right.
charge and stuff like that, and the
It
people who
was the
are,
elders were the head. The
yeah,
ancients had pointed out them as the elders were the head, and the tail was the prophets who were giving false prophecies. That was the head and the tail. So here we have metaphorically talking about them being cut off. So we're using a metaphor to explain something literally happening. They're going to be taken out. And then continue, Charles.
The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. For
Keep
the
going.
leaders, for the leaders of this people, calls them to err, and
There.
they that are
So this is happening because the leaders of the people are causing the people to fail. So all this wrath that's going on is because they're leading them, and they're going to be cut off. The head and the tail, the elders and the prophets are going to be cut off. All right, continue.
and they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For every one is an hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire, it shall devour the briers and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke.
Good. So we're talking about a lot of death and destruction and a lot of people being cut off and removed, right?
Right?
Doesn't that sound like darkness to you, metaphorically?
Mm-hmm.
That's really dark times. And then we get into 19. Through the wrath of the Lord of the host is the land darkened. Well, what was the wrath we just read? The
Destruction,
death and
pandemonium.
destruction. Exactly. And it talked about them being cut off and that the wickedness would go to fire. Well, we already discussed that when we got more context. What is that referring to?
Hellfire, lake of fire.
Exactly. So really we have two parts in 19. One metaphorical, one, well, they're both metaphorical, but to a literal end. So the metaphor of the land being the metaphor is more likely than the literal, but it is a combination of both. The land being darkened, the wrath of the Lord of hosts through the wrath of the Lord of the hosts is the land darkened. Well, we read the wrath. It's about the death and destruction of the people. So the land being darkened, that doesn't look likely to be literally darkened as in no sunlight. It looks more to be darkened as in metaphorical darkness, spiritual darkness, all things going bad. But then the next part, people shall be as a fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother. Okay, that sounds like the literal example of the people being used in like burning to metaphorically relate to the end, the judgment day. So that's the most likely. Now, could it be literal talking about the land getting dark, like the sun is covered up? Yeah, we've had some literal stuff of that. It happened at the time when Christ was on the cross for a few hours. But when that happened, when we look at that, it doesn't seem to be more that way here. But it is still a 50-50 toss up because this could be talking literal towards that end time. That's why both are needed. But I would say, honestly, which one sounds more likely to you now that you've gone back and reread the context?
More so hellfire, judgment day.
Exactly. And what about the darkness or the darkened?
Oh, just death. What what did I say in my head? Death, destruction, pandemonium. DDP.
Exactly. So
That's what the
so the
darkness sounds
darkened
like.
sounds more like metaphor, not literal, right?
Hmm.
But so both are possible. So we still have to bring up both, but based on the rest of the context, the correlation to the end time and to all them like having death, destruction, and pandemonium, that's what it sounds like it's more going towards. So do you get how contextually it showed that? Do you get how why we had to connect that,
When we
Charles?
went back to 14, yes.
All right. Thomas, do you get how we got there?
Yep.
All right. Now, one thing, Thomas, I will say, I told him to go back 5 verses. He went back 6, but on that 5th verse, it said who the elders were, right?
Yeah, yeah, it did.
So, Thomas, if you would have reread like when he did, you would have had the answer. This is why I was saying, as a good example, that even if you're not the one explaining, you should be following along at the same level because you would have had that answer had you been following along with Charles. You see what I'm saying, Thomas?
Makes total sense.
Yeah. And Charles, same for you when it's Thomas's turn. Just because you're not the one reading doesn't mean you should be multitasking or doing something else. You should also be following along and at the same level as what we're going through with Thomas. That way, you've had a chance to read as well, and you'll be prepared. On both
Got
sides, I want you guys to always be invested in the learning process, not just when you're doing the explanations.
got it.
All right, go ahead and continue with your explanation, Charles.
So next one, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. Let me stop there for a second. That just sounds like you're going to be, whether from the left hand or the right hand, it doesn't matter. You're going to starve. You're going to be hungry and you're not going to be satisfied. It doesn't matter what direction it's coming from. It doesn't matter what hand you're coming from when you're eating. Hunger and starvation from either direction.
Uh, Not quite. What does the rest of it say
They
after
shall
the
eat
colon?
after the colon. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm.
The flesh of his own arm. So, what does that sound
So,
like?
um, just the you could do a metaphorical devouring yourself, not just a literal. You can do a metaphorical, but I gotta explain the metaphorical devouring yourself.
Exactly.
I need a
See, when
I
we
need an
look at
example to
20, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall snatch on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. So, when it's saying snatch on the right and be hungry and snatch on the left, whose right and whose left is being eaten? Is it another person's or their own?
they're wrong.
Exactly. So we know what that means if it's literal. You're literally eating your own body because you have nothing to eat. You have no food. We could see people doing that, cutting off their arms and cooking up because they don't have anything. We could see the cannibalism going. But what if it was metaphorical?
That's where I'm stuck on trying to think of the like an example to explain that to where it makes sense.
All right. Well, I'm going to give Thomas a chance, but as I do, keep this in mind. Think about as a whole what it would mean if it's a metaphor, you eating your own flesh. Not specific to the details or the physical, but as a whole, what it would mean if that's a metaphor. All right, Thomas.
You causing your own demise.
There we go. You- But you should have said my phrase. I'm disappointed in you. I was hoping you were going to use it. You being an accomplice in your own demise. That's what it would mean if it was metaphorical, Charles. You're devouring yourself.
Getting hooked on drugs, diving deeper into sins, doing all the extras. Got it. Your own demise.
Exactly. You're causing your own problem. Well, but it doesn't even have to be just you doing it to yourself in that way. I'll give you an example. You know what suicide by cop is?
Isn't that the term where you purposely set up the cop in a position where he has to shoot you, but you purposely set up the scenario for him to pull that gun out on you? Like you created the
Exactly.
whole situation?
Exactly. You force the issue, put it in a position where the cop has to shoot, knowing that he'll have to shoot so that he can shoot you and kill you. In that situation, did the cop actually kill you or did you really kill yourself and the cop was a tool?
You killed yourself. Cop was just a tool.
Exactly. So it's not just the sins you do, but it's also the choices you make and how they impact through others' decisions. That is also another way that you can be an accomplice to your own demise. A perfect example is the example I used when I came up with that phrase. A woman in an abusive relationship. If you decide to stay in that relationship after a month and then it gets worse and worse and then he kills you, is it really his fault alone or is it your fault that you died there too? You see what
There
I'm
we go.
saying, Charles?
It's the woman's fault. Why didn't you leave? You had all the opportunity.
Exactly. So it's both of their faults in that situation, but you definitely take some of the blame. It's basically suicide from anxiety induced suicide or self killing by another through another person. Bottom line is you're still devouring your own flesh, in other words, and metaphorically. So if it's literal, we know what this means. They're starving. They have no food to the point that they're eating their own body. But if it's metaphorical, they're the cause of, at least in part, of their own demise. They are an accomplice to their own demise. Keep going into 21.
Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his right hand is stretched out still.
Right hand?
But his hand is stretched out still. So back to now, it looks like we're getting back to the focus of Manasseh, or not. Well, Manasseh's new on this one. Ephraim isn't, but we got Manasseh and Ephraim. It's still bringing up how they're still going to go against Judah. Well, let me add something to that first, because it's not just Manasseh and Ephraim. It added the and they together. So I'm taking that as the third part would be the they. Who's the they though?
Uh, Charles,
Go ahead.
come on. They together, Manasseh Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. Who's the they?
The way it was written down, I thought the way it was set up, I thought there was a
Punctuation.
third because it just brings them up twice: Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh.
Well, unless it brings up a third, why would you think there's a third? I mean, it says them forward and backwards. It's emphasizing those two.
So then it's just these two coming against Judah.
Yep. But it is showing a mental state or emotion of the writer by the way it phrased it. Manasseh Ephraim and Ephraim Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. Pointing it out like that is also showing a close knitness. That they're not just helping each other out a little bit, that they are in unison working together. Do you get how that would mean that, Charles?
With this last thing you just brought up, no.
Okay. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh. Charles and Thomas, and Thomas and Charles. And together they're going against Dylan. By saying it backwards and forwards, I'm emphasizing the fact that you're united.
I feel like that's somebody that just the one who's writing it and emphasizing it. There's some dislike. There has to be some type of hatred, some type of dislike. That's how I think about it when you bring it up in that example. Like when you brought up me and Charles going against Dylan, I'm thinking of like my ex writing something like that.
Me and Charles?
Well,
Charles
not me
and
and Charles. Sorry,
Charles.
Charles and Thomas. Charles and Thomas going against Dylan. When you bring it up that way, I think of my like an ex writing that. Seriously, like somebody
In
that
what
has a
way? Like,
dislike.
explain that a little further, because you might
Well,
be right.
somebody that dislikes me. Somebody that has a real disdain or hatred or dislike to me.
Okay, in comparison to the people listed, who's the one you're saying the writer hates or dislikes?
That the writer
Judah
doesn't like.
or Manasseh and Ephraim?
That the writer doesn't like Manasseh and Ephraim.
Oh, I disagree on that. I would say he's putting them together as to say how how can I put this? He's pointing out how pointless it is for Judah to try to struggle. For example, if I were to say Thomas and Charles and Thomas, and together they're going against Judah. When I say that, I'm pointing out that, look, I don't care whose name is first. I don't care which one of you I'm listing, but y'all are together on this one. And I don't know how Judah gonna deal with it. Do you see what I'm saying, Charles?
Yeah, well, you can get you can get animated with it. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So anger wise, I would say no. Dismissive wise, I'd say yeah. Because if it was anger, he would have said the names the same way. Because I'm gonna say the same thing, but in the same order. Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh and Ephraim, and they together shall be against Judah. See how that one portrays more anger than the other way does?
When you add that extra emotion to it too. Yeah.
Exactly. See, it could be excitement, it could be as positive, or it could be anger, is that, but it is definitely showing that he prefers one side over another if it was written in the same order. But when he's writing them backwards and forwards, it shows dismissiveness, not care and consideration. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
All right, Thomas, do you understand that too?
Yep.
Don't forget. Okay, there you go. Good. All right, go ahead, Charles. Continue with 10, verse 1 to 2.
So starting off with one, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees. Woe unto them, warning unto those. And when you're talking about that decree, unrighteous decrees, last time we got into decree, we were talking about like a law for the land, like this rule or law for the land.
Yep.
So warning unto those that make these unrighteous.
The land and or the people. It could be
The land,
specific to the people.
okay, the land or the people. Um, Warning unto those that made this law unrighteous law, a unrighteous law to the land or to the people, and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. If you're writing grievousness is like, woe is me, you're miserable, you're troubled.
No.
Let me double check
What does
that.
it mean to prescribe something? What is it when a doctor is prescribing something? Is it for himself?
He's writing something for the
Or is
patient.
it for him? There you go. For
For
somebody
the
else.
patient.
All right. Take that and try again with that.
Oh, so just like with the example when you brought up the doctor writing for the patient and that right grievousness, which they have prescribed. So they're, in other words, you're writing it to the people then. In other
Yeah,
words,
yeah, you're causing the grievousness through what you're writing.
and we have a semicolon, so two is part of this. To turn aside the needy from judgment. Well, if I'm turning aside the needy from judgment, that's I'm thinking of, oh man, the needy needs this, needs that, needs this, needs that, and you don't hear their calls. You don't hear what they got going on. You don't help. You don't nothing. Turn around and go back to where you came from. In other words, needy.
Not just that. What is judgment? What are you doing if
Yeah.
you're having judgment take place?
Well, if it's judgment, you hear the calls, you judge them for the situation. Oh, okay, this is what you need. We'll set this up. Oh, okay, that you're hearing them out, and you're because they're
Well,
needy. You're
judgment's more specific. What you're talking about is discernment. That's one form of judging. But judgment is more specific.
judgment specific as in issuing out. You're basically the result of you're telling what's need to be done. It's the end of
No.
how am I trying to explain this? Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm still thinking about it.
All right, Thomas, give you the chance.
Like making that final decision. Do you hear me?
On what? Yeah, I heard you. Like you got okay. When somebody says, "Why you judging me?" What are they saying? Why are you making a decision on me?
No, they're not.
That's why this one should have been a little straightforward for you guys. What is
Yeah, I'm having
judgment,
a brain fart.
Charles?
Oh, you're talking to, so when you brought up the example, why you judging me? In other words, like why are you? Because when people say that, it's almost like why are you criticizing me? Why are you?
Yeah. Why
Um,
are you saying I'm wrong?
why?
That's what they really mean. Why are you saying? Why are you calling me out saying I'm wrong? And we know it's talking about that because of what it says in the next portion. What does it say right after that, Charles?
and to take away the right from the poor of my people.
Ah, and take away the right from the poor. You're taking away what's right from the poor of my people and the widows, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. So you're taking away the righteous judgment. In other words, you're treating the needy as if they don't deserve to have righteous judgment given to them. The hearing their cause is good. That was on the right track. But when you brought up about them having their needs met, it got too specific. Judging righteously, judging between what's right, the right thing to do and wrong thing to do, without having any respect of persons, and without having any priority against the poor. That's what it's bringing up in 1 and 2. More specifically, 2. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yes, now it does.
All right, Thomas, does that make sense?
I need a little bit more explanation.
All right. To take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey. How would a widow be somebody's prey? Oh, you don't have a man? I'll be your man. I'll take care of you. You just got to do such and such thing for me. Does that have to do with their needs being met? It a little bit. Does it have to do more with righteous judgment and them being treated right? Yeah. Does that make sense, Thomas?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, definitely. All right. So What is it talking about when it brings up unrighteous decrees then, Charles?
When you're talking about unrighteous decrees, you're talking about shady laws that are taking advantage of people. That's what you're getting into.
Exactly. Laws that don't have, they either have a respect of persons problem, they're putting priorities, they're not doing it righteously, they're not doing it fair, just, and in the right way. What is an example of a law today that is an unrighteous decree in America? Charles? And Thomas, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Why is there so many in my mind that are drawing blank? Oh, here's one that's not even. How is this fair? Us having our tax dollars go to not only illegal immigration and all their benefits, but to things we don't even want, things we're not signing up for. We should be able to pick what our tax dollars should go to.
Exactly. That's a good one. What's an example of something that we should be able to decline?
Perfect
Charles?
example. Who calls the ambulance? None. My family doesn't. Someone's driving you to the hospital. We'll decline that. What about the police? We just stop calling 911. We'll decline it. You don't even show up on the accidents. When I got rear-ended on the highway, they didn't show up. We'll decline that option too. What about if illegal immigrants have this, that, and the third? They have more benefits than me, and I work a job. No, we're declining that too. They're not even here legally, and they're
That's
not
not
paying
even the
taxes
worst
on the job.
examples. I'll give you a better one. Abortion. I'm a Christian. I don't want none of my money going towards abortion, but part of it does. I should have a right to decline that.
Ah, didn't he? Oh yeah, yeah. That's another. Yeah,
Paying for streets and stuff to be fixed when it's not actually getting fixed.
decline. Yeah.
All right. Thomas, what's another unrighteous decree in America to get in today?
I was gonna say abortion, but you took that one.
Oh, my bad.
I had a brain fart. I don't know.
All right. How about the fact that gay marriage can be imposed on churches? Where in certain states you could lose your license or lose certain things if you don't hold a gay wedding there if somebody wants to do it there. Lose massive amounts of money with no repercussions for not wanting to bake a gay wedding cake when you're a Christian. Or having fines during COVID for churches that meet together for worship, even if they're not next to each other. Which the 5 feet rule was dumb to begin with, but I still stand on that fact. Point is, those were other examples where it was an unrighteous decree. We still have this problem going on today, just as they had the problem going on then. All right. Now, does anybody have any comments or questions about the first section as we go to the second section? Now would be the time to raise your hands. All right, then, Thomas, go ahead and unmute and read when you're ready.
All right. We're reading Isaiah chapter 10, verses 3 through 7. Give it a couple seconds. And what will ye do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come from far? From whom will ye flee for help? And where will ye leave your glory? Without me they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. O Assyrians, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. I will send him against an hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil, and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mere of the street. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart thinks so. But it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. All right. Taking it from the top. Hold on 1 second. All right, verse 10, read that one more time. Woe unto them that decree unrighteously decrees. My bad, guys. I jumped to the wrong one. I'm looking at the Bible. Taking it from 3. And what will ye do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come far, sorry. And to whom will ye flee for help? And where will ye leave your glory? So right here, uh, a question is being asked, pretty much saying, what you gonna do in the day when they come? The day when it comes, and then all the desolation. Hold on 1 second. Should have my Strong's already open. I do apologize, guys.
You're good.
All right, read page 7722. From an unused root meaning to rush over. A tempest by application, devastation. So all the devastation that is going to come from afar. What you gonna do then? And where are you gonna flee? Where are you gonna flee to help? Where are you gonna? And then it says, where will ye leave your glory? That's crazy. Pretty much saying there ain't no escape. And then we jump over to 4. Without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out. Wow. It says they shall bow down under their prisoners without me. And they shall fall under the slain. So this is like the lowest of the lowest. There ain't no escaping from this. And God's not turning away from his anger. His hand is still stretched out. His wrath is still ongoing.
No. Ah, you're so close.
The
Ah,
wrath is still ongoing or what?
the his part being God. But you need your later verses in this section to understand. That's your hint.
All right, let me read 5 and 6 one more time. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. I will send him against an hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, and to take the spoil, and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mirror of the streets. So it's not clicking. Go ahead. I don't want to hold up too much time.
Ah, I was hoping you get it. All right, Charles,
Man.
give you the chance.
So the part is for all this his anger. That was the part I'm supposed to figure out.
Who is the his? Yep.
For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Every time we think of someone's or not someone, every time we see hand stretched out, aren't we always talking about God?
Right.
We are, but not quite here.
Oh, so
Oh,
is this like a first
okay.
time it's somebody else?
Okay. I'm gonna give it to you, but I was hoping y'all were gonna guess this because it's hidden, but it's so in your face, it's crazy. Who is the me? Well, you have to think about who is talking. Is it Isaiah talking or is it God speaking?
Wouldn't
Isn't
the
it the
without
Lord speaking?
Wouldn't it be God? Without me, they shall bow down.
Exactly. So without
Right.
me is God. But for all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out. And when we see
Oh
the hand
wow.
stretched out, when do we always see it? You just said it, Charles. When do we always see that phrase?
We always see it with God.
With God. So we have two separate placements of God here. So
Oh, come on. Jesus and God?
yes,
Wow.
yes. The rod of mine anger and the staff in their hands is mine indignation. I will send him, not them, I will send him against an hypocritical nation. Now remember, in verse 9, who have we been reading about since? I mean, chapter 9, who have we been reading about? The son that's
Jesus.
given and the nation on his shoulders. And this is why it's important to distinguish if the beginning of the chapter, is it a separate context or is it connected? This is where you forgot to bring it up and I forgot to correct you on it, Charles. I said you guys need to do this every time and I forgot. Does chapter 10 verse 1 sound like a separate context or connected to 9?
Connected. It sounds connected.
It's connected. So who is the his? The son that's given that will be called God, the Father, the Prince of Peace, all that. And then we get to here in verse 3 through 7 where it talks about his anger not being turned away. Without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain, for all his anger is not turned away. So without God,
But I, yeah.
the Son's anger is not turned away. And how did Jesus speak to the Pharisees and Sadducees about how well they're going to be when it comes to God the Father? Charles?
That I don't remember.
All right, Thomas, do you remember?
Is it in regards to how they're gonna come to God, like, hey, read all of these things in your name, and you like be far away from me, for I never knew you?
No.
Okay.
Jesus told them that if you were of Abraham, you would know me and you would follow me. But ye are of your father the devil. That's what he told them. And if you don't have God the Father in your life, and if you don't have the Son, you don't have the other on both sides. So without me, yeah, they're going to bow down beneath the prisoners. They're not even at the prisoners level. They're less than that. And they're going to fall down under the slain. So they're not even just listed as the slain, they're dying, they're less valuable than the ones that have already died. And all of this, when you look at the comparison and the wording, is literally showing God split in two different parts. God the Father with the plan, and God the Son carrying out the anger, carrying out everything. Do you guys
That's crazy.
understand how it showed that and contextually, Thomas and the Charles?
Yes.
When you put it all together, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because in verse 6, I will send him against a hypocritical nation. Um, I was thinking Assyrian. I completely took Jesus out of my mind.
Mm-hmm. The reason that we know it's not talking about the Assyrian is because of what he says in 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. So he's telling the Assyrian, that my wrath and my anger is in their hand, but I'm talking to you. So who's the them? Who's there? That has to be a third party, not the Assyrian, contextually speaking.
Yeah, I got it. At least I
Crazy,
got it
right?
now. Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah.
But also, let me bring this up too. What did Jesus call the Pharisees when they were trying to correct Jesus and his disciples about washing their hands?
Wasn't it ye hypocrites? Something like that.
Yeah, buddy. Yes, it was. He said, Ye hypocrites, verily do you lay aside the commandments of God that ye may uphold your traditions of men with the washing of pots and pans and many other such things you do. And then he goes into the depiction of honoring thy mother and father. And you say to him to tell his parents, it is Corban, meaning whatever it is you get from me is what God intended for you, thereby making the word of God of no effect. The hypocritical nation is not just described here as being the land of Israel as well, but it's also described as hypocrites according to Jesus himself as well. And I will send him against a hypocritical nation. Here's the other part. Charles, did Jesus go against the Roman Empire?
No, not no.
Thomas, did Jesus go against Egypt?
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. When did he go against Egypt?
Sorry, I'm thinking about Moses. My bad, man. Rewind. I'm so locked into Moses right now. Sorry. Rewind. No.
Why are you focused on
I've been reading a
Moses?
lot of Genesis, bro.
Oh,
Oh man.
okay. Got to refocus
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
All right. No, he didn't go against Egypt. Who is the one and only nation, Charles, that Jesus went against intentionally?
Wasn't he intentionally against Israel?
Yes. He was intentionally against the leaders of Israel. I will send him against an hypocritical nation. He always called them hypocrites, and he was only truly against the nation of Israel because of their hypocrisy. Literally deriving everything that's happening at Jesus' time is literally shown here. However, and this is where context matters, and what we read last time matters. If you read this part alone, Thomas, what do you think Jesus will be like when he shows up the first time? Don't forget to
One
unmute.
second.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I think it's a people tomorrow. He's gonna be on a mission. Um, no time to spare. Like I'm trying to kind of lean away from the wrath. Because you said the first time, correct?
Okay, I'm gonna need you, Thomas. You got to pay attention to the question. If
You
you
said what would it be
just
like?
focused on this section, was the first part I said. If you
Okay.
just focused on this section, what would you think Jesus would be like the first time he came? What would you expect him to be like the first time he shows up? If you just focused on this section.
Expect him to be wrathful.
There you go. You'd expect him to be wrathful. You'd expect him coming out, guns blazing, sword drawn, whatever
Yeah.
type of weapon at the time, ready to destroy it all. That's what you would think if you just read this part. So again, when Jesus came peaceably to be the sacrifice the first time, is it understandable how a lot of Jewish folk believe Jesus is not the Messiah because he didn't come wrathful and end all wars? Is it understandable how they might think that, Thomas?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they were looking for a
definitely
king,
understandable.
type situation.
Exactly. But if they would have read the chapter before that leads into this, because it's all one context, they would have seen about the peace and the government increasing over time. So they would have been better prepared if they got the context. They would have been better prepared for a peaceful Jesus rather than a wrathful Jesus right off the bat. Does that make sense, Charles and Thomas?
Yeah, now it does.
Yep.
All right. And do you guys get now the rest of the context and how it shows to be Christ and how it shows the Trinity again?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was the part
absolutely.
where that was the part we all missing. Not we all, but me and Thomas missed. And I was like, huh? And then I looked again. I'm like, come on. Yeah, it makes
Exactly.
sense now.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, one thing, there's one left to explain that I didn't have Thomas explain it. Go ahead with 7, because there's something that needs to be pointed out about that before we go to the last section.
Forgot about 7. Let me read that one more time. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth this stuff right here is crazy. Neither doth his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. Give me 1 second. Kind of read it to
Mm-hmm.
himself. So, hold on. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither does his heart think so. So he doesn't
Yep.
want to do these things, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to do these things, but he's doing what he needs to do.
Exactly. Jesus doesn't want any nation destroyed, but because of being God and being Christ and being the righteous one, he does have it in his heart to cut off a bunch of nations because of that. So it's not his desire that they be cut off, but for righteousness' sake, it is his desire that righteousness take place, including punishment. Make sense?
Yes. Hello.
I heard you, Thomas.
Okay.
Um, oh, Matt's muted. You're muted, Matt.
Exactly. Sorry about that. So I'll go ahead and switch it to the final section. Does anybody have any comments, questions about the second section as we go to the final for today? Now would be the time to raise your hands. All right. Then go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 10, verses 8 to 11. Verse 8. For he saith, are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno? Let me double check that. It's Calno here, but on the phonetic Calne. I could just go with Calno, right?
Yeah, you can go, Calmo.
Okay. Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamath as Arpad? Arpad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? As my hand hath found the kingdoms of the idols, and whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem and of Samaria. Shall I not, as I have done unto Samaria and her idols, so do to Jerusalem and her idols? Why in totality? Why does it sound like God? Now we got God saying the same thing with Samaria. Should I like rhetorically saying, should I not
Yeah,
rhetorically saying it almost I almost said the wrong thing. Rhetorically, God is saying, should I not punish Jerusalem as I have done to Samaria? It's like, should I what do you that's like I gotta bring up an example to help bring this out. I need an example for this. I got one, but I want to make sure I get the right words out. I'll use an example of my mom. Let's say my cousin's in trouble. Let's say I'm in trouble. And when they're talking to an adult or my cousin's situation, and she's like, "Oh, Charlie's, should I not punish Jasper, which is my cousin's name? Should I not punish him like I'm punishing my son?" And she's rhetorically saying, in other words, you think I'm just gonna let him slide? Just like
exactly.
you think I'm gonna let this slide? I'm not letting this slide. I'm gonna punish his cousin just like I punished my son. My nephew and my cousin are getting punishments. Don't think I'm letting this slide. Don't think it's no repercussions. They're gonna come back and they're gonna be straight and they're gonna be good.
You
Like that's
probably
what I'm
heard the
trying to
phrase
get out.
before. You think ish sweet?
There you go. I was trying to make sure I get the right words and get the right meaning out. Now, did that make sense or
Yeah, no, that was perfect.
okay?
It also goes to prove another point about God's establishment of these kingdoms. For he saith, are not my princes altogether kings? I'm the one who set up these princes. Aren't they kings? Is there any difference between Calno and Carchemish? Is there any difference between Hamath and Arpad? Is there any difference between Samaria and Damascus? And obviously, what's the answer to that he's expecting, Charles?
No. The answer is no.
No, there's no difference. And he says, as my hand hath found the kingdoms of the idols. I'm the one who found this. I'm the one who got this. Who's seen these kingdoms and their idols. So shouldn't I do the same punishment to Jerusalem as I did to them? Again, here we go showing when it says, for he saith. Now, who's the third person? He, his, and all that's been in this section, Charles?
So we're to talk about God. We got Jesus, and who's the third person?
Well, no, it was Jesus. I said the third party section, the he, the his, and all that.
We still got God and Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not God the Father. We've seen that separation in this section. Just God the Son. So Jesus is saying, aren't these all my princes together? Aren't they all these kings? Is there any difference? We got the Son explaining that he is king over these kings, that he is above them all in this section. And that is of a great importance because it shows the separation of the Father and the Son, yet the Son is still the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But yet there is only one everlasting Father, but he will be called the everlasting Father. The Trinity is shown in this section as well. And how they have equal authority, even though they are separate people, yet one. Does that make sense, Charles and Thomas?
Yes. Yes. So we're still yeah, we're still going through more evidence of Jesus in the Old Testament.
Exactly.
I can see why they don't put this in the synagogues.
yeah. You
We're only in chapter 10. Oh man. I can
mind
see why
you,
they don't put
this
in the
is an
synagogues.
interesting part because ever since chapter 5 or 6, I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been 5. But ever since 5 or 6, we have seen something relating to Jesus Literally in every single chapter.
Chapter. Yeah.
Literally. I don't remember if it was 5 or if it was 6, but we have literally seen it in every single chapter, something that correlates to Jesus. Whether it's the way the nation is at the time, how they treat the Messiah, who the Messiah is, how he treats them. Every single chapter has brought up Christ in Isaiah ever since either 5 or 6. That's the big point I wanted to point out. So, anyways, do you guys have any comments or questions about this section before we pray it out? Or the rest of the Bible study portion before we pray it out? Now would be the time to raise your hands. All right, then Thomas, go ahead when you're ready.
You guys can bow your heads. Father, thank you for another Bible study where you continue to just show your correlation to Jesus in the Old Testament. And we even delve into the Trinity, which is really cool. I'm glad that Matt was able to point that out because it definitely did go over me and Charles' head. But it's things like that that we're appreciative for. And in Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. All right. Now then, tonight's Bible listening is from Leviticus chapter 26 to Numbers chapter 8. Again, that's Leviticus chapter 26 to Numbers chapter 8. Let me know when you got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Good. Now, last night's listening was from Leviticus chapter 14 to 25. And we'll have Thomas go first, then Charles, and then I'll finish this out.
Okay. My bad. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna do Leviticus 17:11, and it reads, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your sins." So pretty much we have God explaining pretty much about blood sacrifices and how sacred they are, and also we have here everything that comes into effect with things of that, as in regards to like repentance and and asking for in mercy aspect and things of that nature. We've seen a lot of things take place when it came to sacrifices. But yeah, that's what I got here, guys. Wait, hold up. Wait, before you say anything, as we also see the same thing with Jesus Christ and his ultimate sacrifice, the shed of his flesh and his blood is the perfect depiction for such a thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Good. All right. Charles, you got anything you want to add on that?
No.
Why'd you say that with such surprise? Thomas, am I wrong? Did he not sound like it's like, no?
His
Like he
eyebrows were
almost got
definitely
offended.
raised.
Yeah, you said that
My
like
bad.
some like Karen on some Christmas movie. Do you want to bring the cookies this time, Karen? No, no.
My bad.
That's a perfect example.
My bad.
That was hilarious. The only thing that I'll bring up is that in the next verse connected to it, and this is why this stuck out to me too, was that the stranger is not allowed to eat any of it. They're not allowed to eat the blood either in this sacrifice and dealing with it. And it was interesting because it goes to show the point. Though the stranger somewhat can have forgiveness for their sins too, if they're living with you and they're abiding by the laws and all that. But even if they aren't part of the children of Israel, they're still required to follow the laws. And so, in that same token, when you go through the laws and we see what the laws are, everybody that lives under your roof needs to be following those laws. Oh, Thomas, that reminds me of something I was thinking about. This, in my opinion, is the main reason why God's answer for you was you need to get into your own apartment. I believe that this is the real reason why. Because as long as you're living under someone else's roof, you cannot, in any authority or position, require that your house be run in the ways of God. And you won't be able to do that until you're in your own place.
Facts.
So that's the part that stuck out to me too. But anyways, good. And that was a good one, Thomas. Charles?
Well, I have a not so good one. Let me go to it. Leviticus chapter 19.
That's why he went Karen disappointment mode, because he doesn't like his as much as yours.
I dread mines now. Leviticus chapter 19, verses 9 and 10. It just had me thinking today. And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God. We spent time and time talking about how the children of Israel were taking advantage of the needy, taking advantage of the poor, doing this and doing that. And I think I'll just, the multitude of Bible studies where we hear that, and the multitude of times where we get that in context. But then I thought about this verse, like, man, what if I own like 2 acres? I'm not really tripping about the edge of my property. I can care less. If you really need it that bad, I thought that when I heard this voice, heard the verses, I thought about me having cornfields. If I have corn all around the field and on the edge of the property, somebody took a piece of corn, or corn on the cob, it's not gonna. One corn on the cob is not gonna bother me. 10 wouldn't bother. I have an acre. I have an acre or two. What do the edges matter? The birds can take it for all I care. I'm not really tripping about it. But it also made me think about how I hate when I hear the whole Christian nation thing. We don't live like that if we claim to be this Christian nation. We don't think like that. Not our people in power. They don't think that same way. We may have people that believe in the faith. We may have the defense of Christians. We don't have Muslims coming over here blowing up every synagogue every single day, all day. That's cool and all, but
we have.
We're on the cusp of it. We're getting pretty close, and we got somewhat of an umbrella, somewhat of a safety net through our government, but we're not really a Christian nation like that. That kind of made me really think about that.
We've never been. This is what I've said before. When we look at every requirement of the Bible, both Old Testament and New, because there are requirements in the New Testament, just like there are requirements in the Old. Some are different, some are the same. We have never been a Christian nation. What we have always been is a nation with some Judeo-Christian roots. Some. And I agree with you. I hate the fact that they try to claim we've ever been a Christian. We've never been that. If you look at how they treated their slaves, every single slave owner that you hear about in history books would have been put to death if we were a Judeo-Christian nation, instead of just having Judeo-Christian influences.
Right.
Every single.
I don't know why this. I guess this verse session made me think of that, because normally I really don't think about it political. I mean, you know how I feel about politics, but this one kind of just got me thinking.
Yeah.
It irks me when they talk about that.
And then read it out loud one more time.
Let me go back. Verse 9. This chapter 19, verse 9.
That's right.
And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest.
Now keep
And
that in
that,
mind. That's good enough. Keep that in mind because I have something specific I want to say on that. But Thomas, do you have anything you want to add on it before I do?
No.
Is that what we doing now? Everybody gonna sound like a disappointed Karen when we just answer no. I'm so with it. I'm with it. We should really do this. No. But anyways, back to it. He said when you're harvesting, not to harvest the corners and to leave them for those that are poor and needy. What are you doing when you're harvesting your crops, Charles?
harvesting them, I'm pulling my crops, getting ready for me to either eat them or sell them, trade them.
So if you're harvesting your crops, why didn't God tell them to save at when they harvest to set aside some for the poor?
Oh, he didn't. Well, I was gonna say he didn't have to because you already got the edges in
No, no,
this.
no, 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 no. You're missing the point. If this was just about giving the poor food, all it would be easier on the poor to harvest the food yourself and give it to them. That's not what God did. God had them leave some for them to harvest themselves. So even when he is
Made them
having
work.
them, they have to work for it. Even when God is telling them to be there for the needy and the poor, even when he is telling them, he said it in a way that still requires the poor and needy to have effort. They have to work for it. Because God could have just as easily, because he literally brought up harvesting. We have to think God is real stupid if we're going to try to claim that while he's saying bringing up harvesting, he forgot to add or didn't know or didn't think about to harvest some specifically for the poor and needy. God could have easily have said that. And that would have made it where the poor and needy have no work they got to do at all. And they have the food that they need. So it wasn't just taking care of them. It was being helpful to them, but you're making sure that they're working for it still. They're not lazy. And then think about the impact of that. If you have just given to the poor, no requirements to work, a man doesn't work, a man shouldn't eat, none of that requirement, just give it to them. Where's the incentive and requirement for them to work? Where's the incentive and requirement for them to be of help to anybody? They can just lounge around and get the free stuff. Ain't that what we see today? And in that what we saw in times of the Bible and corrupt people
Yeah.
when they didn't have this going on? So he made sure God literally told them, even when he told them to help the needy, he only told them to help to the point to leave it available to them, not to give them a handout. In other words, God gave them a hand up, not a handout. You still got to work for it yourself. All right. Thomas and Charles, anything you guys want to add on that?
No.
No.
All right. Then I will go to mine. And I had two that I wanted to dig through, and I'm hard pressed. But I think I'll go with the second one. Charles, you'll probably guess like which one I was gonna bring up. It was in chapter 15. That was the one I was gonna bring up, but I think the other one's more important. All right, so chapter 21, verse 16 to 23. All right, in here, in 21, No man that hath a blemish of the seed of Aaron the priest shall come nigh to offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire. He hath a blemish. He shall not come nigh to offer the bread of his God. He shall eat the bread of his God, both of the most holy and of the holy. Only he shall not go in unto the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he hath a blemish, that he profane not my sanctuaries, for I, the Lord, do sanctify them. God, when it came to offerings, who could offer, what kind of offer, the quality of the offering, one thing was constant. It's the same problem with Cain and Abel, same problem here. Blemishes. God's sacrifice has to have zero imperfections, nothing wrong with them at all. And as we saw from here in 21, even the person giving the offering, doing the sacrifice, they weren't allowed to have blemishes. But they still got the food to eat. They had other things they could do. They just couldn't do the specific offering, the sacrifice itself. They still ate from it. They still did every other part, but they couldn't do that. Just because God has a requirement in a very specific area does not mean his requirement goes over all. This stood out to me because when we look at society today, how do they talk about somebody who's blind? They try to make them feel like they're equal with everybody else. They try to make them seem as if there's zero difference. And then they try to pretend like people don't have to accommodate them. Which is, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to accommodate. It's a great thing to help out the blind. It's a great thing, especially if they're trying to better themselves. But I've literally, and you guys have probably literally heard somebody say, whether it's blind, whether it's deaf, that they can do everything you can do. And the truth is, no, they can't. A blind person can't drive. They could have a self-driving car. Hopefully the self-driving car is working properly. They can't drive. A deaf person. There are certain jobs a deaf person cannot do. So when it comes to the things of God, we're supposed to be giving God the best, the closest to perfection that we can give. So it's understandable why, even when it comes to people and their imperfections, why God would have this requirement. Now, the impact side of this and why it stuck with me too. Does this mean that God made a mistake by making them have these blemishes? Is God a evil God for making them this way? Just to have them not capable? No. What this shows is, and I honestly believe this is part of the reason why God does this. God creates people knowing they'll have imperfections to prove that they can be made perfect in God and that he covers up the difference. And that in and of itself is a representation of how Christ covers us. And everybody is imperfect. The only difference is theirs is more visible than others. So no, God did not make a mistake in making somebody blind. He made them with a purpose. Their blindness works to a specific thing. All right. That's why that stuck out to me. All right, Thomas, you got anything you want to add on that?
No, sir.
Charles, you got anything you want to add on that?
No, but that was a good point. to make with those verses.
hmm Did you know which one I was going to bring up in 15, Charles?
In 15, I was laughing, but I was like, wait a minute. Why am I laughing? I don't know which one he was going to bring up. I
You
thought I
started laughing and you
did.
didn't even know.
I was laughing like, and then I'm like, which one was he going to bring up?
All right, I just want to bring this up to you guys because I was going to bring it up, but I'm not going to do the explanation part. I just want you guys to know because this is an important verse, section 2, for a different reason.
Okay, I just
16
read
to,
it.
yes, Thomas, go ahead and read and let me know once you've read verse 16 to 18 of chapter 15.
Oh, man.
On the grabber.
You
Go
said
ahead.
what?
In the bathroom. Go ahead.
Okay, so as long as you read it, that's all I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna bring up, if not for the other one, but I think the other one was more important. But what the only thing I will say is I do think this needs to be brought up. What this goes to show is how could I put this to where it's biblically okay? I mean, a Bible study okay.
Because it's funny. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Happy time for an adult male is, but it does make you unclean, depending on how you go about it. If you're lusting after a woman when you're doing it, it is a sin because you're committing adultery in your heart. But the aspect and the action of it by itself, it equated it to getting intimate with a woman. And both of them made you unclean, but neither of them made you in sin. That's why that's important. All right. Anyways, do you guys have anything else you want to add or say before we close out the Bible study and everything?
No.
All right, good. Then I will go ahead and close this out. Have a good night, y'all.